What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Cameron Selby, and we are going to be breaking down the Week 3 DraftKings main slate. And we're going to be taking a first look. This week, a whole lot more injuries than the previous week. There wasn't a ton we were looking at. There was the Juwan Jennings news. There was, Mac Jones being the minimum price quarterback. Other than that, there wasn't a ton that we were looking at for game time decisions going into the main slate. This week, there's a ton of stuff that went down. A lot of injury news to get into. So we are on the road to 300. If you are new to this channel, please go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe. Join the discussion. We do Discord. We do these picks all week long. We do college football slates, NFL slates, all that fun stuff. And Dusty's going to be doing a great job breaking down. Emery is on baby watch with his wife Taylor, so we wish them all the best in the world. But for the time being, we're going to hold down the fort, and we're going to get y'all prepped and ready for this weekend slate. So with that said, let's go ahead and we'll break it down. Let's get right into the thing. Massive slate this week. It is a 13 gamer. That is a whole lot of games to break down, all of them right around the same point total. So a lot of the same similar looks in games. Ownership should be spread out. There should be some chalky options, but it is very interesting to see that there are no quarterbacks above 7,000, and the very one that is 7,000 may or may not be playing. Jaden Daniels coming down with a knee injury during the week, coming down with a knee injury in the showdown slate on week 2. He is day to day, but if he does not play, Marcus Mariota, $4,000 minimum price. Obviously, being a running threat, a mobile quarterback, and because you're 4,000, you don't need much to get to. Last week, we told you guys play Mac Jones. You won't regret it as a 4,000 play. 22 fantasy points and was one of the best plays on the entire slate. And we took down a lot of money because of the fact that we went cheap quarterback and then going the minimum price, and him working out was a huge get. But with Marcus Mariota possibly being minimum price, we actually have two quarterbacks that could possibly be minimum price starters in good game environments. So obviously Marcus Mariota going against the Raiders in a possible revenge spot. He only played there 2 years, but that's neither here nor there. Remember Carson Wentz, former MVP candidate, the quarterback that was possibly going to win it on the en route to going down with an ACL injury. Nick Foles winning the Super Bowl, the whole shebang, and then derailing the rest of his career. Well, Carson Wentz, now with the Vikings, minimum price. Well, he did start last year in the week 18 for Kansas City as a backup when they rested every single starter, set him up for failure, and obviously he had an awful game because of that. But the last time he did play as a starter with starters, he had 27 fantasy points, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown with the Los Angeles Rams. So Kevin O'Connell, the guy that allowed Sam Darnold to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback, a possible MVP candidate on a 14-win team, it's not out of the realm of possibility that in a game against the home game against the Cincinnati Bengals that he can't take down with the weapons of TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, now Jordan Mason, who is the starter with Aaron Jones also on IR and missing the next 4 games due to a hamstring injury. So it's just worth mentioning. Don't know whether or not I'm going to be playing all the Carson Wentz or all the Marcus Mariota, hypothetically, but it's just worth mentioning. But yeah, kicking it off, because of the cheap quarterbacks, obviously, there are a whole lot of unique spots to get different, but basically it feels like a mid-price quarterback week. Dak Prescott, obviously going off against the New York Giants, going for over 350 yards, 2 scores, and getting the W with the 26-point outing last week. He is in play going against Chicago, who allowed 5 passing touchdowns, and the millionaire maker quarterback in Jared Goff last week, and Jalen Johnson now out indefinitely because of a groin injury. So even better for the pass catching situation of the Dallas Cowboys. But on the other side of things, Caleb Williams, I know he hasn't had the boom game yet, but at some point it's going to come. Very kind of underrated performances the past couple of weeks. I mean, 24 fantasy points in a game that they did not play well. People were dogging on him for not closing out the game well. They lost a game they should not have. Followed it up with a revenge spot. We were all in on Caleb Williams. He was my favorite quarterback last week. And obviously he was not the best of the bunch of the quarterbacks that I played. Mac Jones outperformed him. Drake May outperformed him. But also, he lost by 30. And he still had 18 fantasy points. He just did not play in the fourth quarter. But he was well on his way to be a 300-yard threat, a possible 3-touchdown threat. He also has, sneaky rushing upside. He had the 58 yards rushing touchdown in week 1 as well. But going against Dallas, like I said, Russell Wilson, 400-something passing yards, giving up 37 fantasy points to Wan'Dale Robinson, giving up a bunch of a bunch of points to Malik Neighbors as well. Well, you got DJ Moore, you got Rome Odunze, who tied for the league in touchdowns. Shout out to him being our most drafted wide receiver in the top 100 this past year during the best ball season. He's off to a hell of a start, and the reason is because Caleb Williams touchdowns, all three of them have gone to Mr. Rome Odunze, and he actually left some on the table this past week where he had a couple of not necessarily drops, but could have had big plays, and it didn't necessarily work out. So Caleb has not had the absolute extreme boom game of the 300-yard, 3-touchdown performance. I think it could be coming at some point in the near future, and Dallas is a great way to go at home in a must-win game, being down, 0-2 to start the season. Dallas riding high, but it is by far the highest total on the slate, 50. The next highest total, 45. Obviously, that's the game to go to. On top of that, it being a 3 o'clock slate, it makes me feel even better because the last couple of weeks, we've been mostly hammering our double stacks and all that stuff into the 12 o'clock slates and then just hoping that that flex play, that last guy in the 3 o'clock games, did enough to keep us in cash. Well, this week, a lot of the stuff that we're going to be playing Dallas, Chicago, 3 o'clock slate. So Dallas, Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams, to me, those are the routes to go for the most part. Stacking with Rome Odunze, only 53 still. Now he might be popular, but it's still a great spot, and he's still going to be continuing to have a strong start to the season as long as he stays healthy, knock on wood. DJ Moore, on the other hand, his price is dropping after back-to-back duds. But again, Chicago kind of condensed with the guys that they're really going with. There's a Olamide Zaccheaus, 44% of the snaps, not really what you want to see as a slot receiver. Luther Burden, barely getting on the field. Colston Loveland, only 2 catches through 2 weeks. He's being significantly outsnapped by Cole Kmet, and DeAndre Swift is getting all the workload mostly out of the backfield. So it's the 3 guys, pair them. Caleb Williams, maybe because people hate Caleb Williams still. He'll still be under-owned based on what he has, the upside, the matchup, all that stuff. And him being only 5,600, Dak only being 51. If you look at the opponent rank, obviously 31st against quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, 32nd against quarterbacks, Dak Prescott. Those are the guys to play. I wouldn't be shocked if they were both top 5 in terms of ownership, but if they're not, then it's a steal, and you should be overweight to basically all Cowboys, Bears, relevant players. Next up, Drake May. Very interesting start to the season. 50 opportunities in a bad weather game. He did not have the best game against the Raiders, only 17 fantasy points, but he was 5,500. So not the worst thing. It was kind of similar to what Caleb Williams ended up performing this past week against the Bears, this past week against the Lions, but at the same time, very serviceable. This game, even in not really a ton of opportunities in terms of passing volume, obviously he got cut in half from 46 pass attempts down to 23, but he was very, very efficient, 82% completion percentage, multiple touchdowns, also had a rushing touchdown, 10 rushing opportunities, was pretty impressive. But also he could have had a boom game in terms of going over 30 points. He was kind of robbed of that final drive because Miami essentially went down, or they went down and had that punt return touchdown. And then all of a sudden, New England, who was playing from ahead for most of the fourth quarter, now found themselves trailing. But then on the ensuing kickoff, New England runs it all the way back. And then Miami takes a long drive, goes down to try to take the lead. They do not. And then New England at the very end of the game, they just ran out the clock. So with that said, he didn't really have the fourth quarter opportunity, possible drive to have even more upside. He left some on the table. But going against Pittsburgh, obviously bottom 5 so far against quarterbacks, and they have not played the best of quarterback play. I mean, they played Sam Darnold, who has been impressive with the Seahawks so far, and Justin Fields, who had a great first game, second game, not so much, and then also got concussed. But it's not like, oh, you played Mahomes, then you played Lamar or Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, what are you going to do? Like, that's like they're just going to get theirs. No, they're bottom 5 against Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, on brand new teams early in the season, and you were supposed to be one of the top 5 or 6 defenses in football this year. They have a lot of holes, and right now they're just allowing quarterbacks and young ones specifically really going off so far. So with Drake May having the rushing upside, the problem is I have no idea who to stack him with. I mean, Stephon Diggs and Hunter Henry were our main doubles or singles with Drake May this past week. Well, Hunter Henry having a dud game, Stephon Diggs having a dud game. Matt Collins had 1 target, caught that touchdown. He's been doing that for 5 years and it's been annoying as hell. Then Kayshon Boutte caught a touchdown after a 100-yard game the week before. That was his only catch for the game. So it was kind of frustrating. He went off, but it was basically a naked. Typically, he's not going to be the kind of guy that you want to play naked, but At the same time, I understand it for only 5,200 at home, good matchup. Or I'm sorry, 5,300. But at home, good matchup, very easy to get to. And because of the lack of pass catching, like exciting options, I understand why he might be overlooked or overowned or underowned. And with the lack of confident pass catching options of who to stack and who to not, I wouldn't be surprised if he got a little overlooked and underowned for this slate. On a 13 gamer, if he's under 5%, I think that's a pretty good steal for the New England Patriots in a game that I might be picking to win. And then down here, I mean, Sam Darnold going against the Saints at home, bottom 10 against quarterbacks, 5,100. Mac Jones, we mentioned, was our puke stack of the week last week. It was pretty self-explanatory. Juwan Jennings actually outscored Ricky Pearsall. We didn't consider Juwan Jennings. That's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. We double stacked him or single stacked him. It didn't matter what you had to do when the minimum price quarterback. But like I said, that's I digress with that. And then, like I said, it's a bunch of ugly pass catching it's a bunch of ugly pass catchers, so just kind of do what you will. But it's not like there's a ton that give me confidence other than the 4 or 5 that I mentioned. So it might be Dak, Caleb, punting down minimum price, sprinkle some Drake May, and then maybe even Bake Show. Bake Show coming back to win against the Texans on the road on Monday Night Football. It was a fun game to watch. Baker, 20 points is not really going to get the job done at $6,600, but it's really easy to know who he's going to. Mike Evans had a tough game, but he had a tough matchup against Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter, who are two of the best corners in football, or one of the best tandems in football. Emeka Egbuka once again scored, but didn't do a ton. But you know it's going to be him until Chris Godwin comes in and actually shows that he can really eat into people's workload. But then with that said, you know, his old college buddy, Sterling Shepard, you can sprinkle in there. And then also Bucky Irving, Rashad White, K. Dotton. Like, the names are there. You know who to do. They're all kind of affordable, reasonable against the Jets D that has been absolutely atrocious so far this season. So, you know, it's a spot to really kind of get into. Running back wise, it's kind of more of the same names. This week, the last couple of weeks, we kind of knew the guys that we wanted to fade and who we did not. Like last week, we didn't consider Derrick Henry. He had not had a ton of success historically against Cleveland. I know the narrative was, oh, they're going to just eat him up. He was minus 200 to score a touchdown. He scored like 5 fantasy points, and it was a complete bust. But we were completely off him. We went with the Christian McCaffrey route, the Jahmyr Gibbs route. Those guys worked out. Unfortunately, there was others that worked out even more, like James Cook, Devon Achane, to name a few. But either way, we kind of got who to not play. Right this week, it's kind of hard because other than Saquon, who is going against the Rams, he's had a brutal start in terms of matchups so far. Dallas really improved run game, and they held him 3 yards a carry. And then it went against the defending champs, who were number 1 against running backs last year. And then so far, who's the number 1 against running backs this year? It's the Rams. They're playing at home. Obviously, Saquon can do whatever he wants, but at the same time, it's not like he has a ton of pass catching upside. He hasn't really been that much with Jalen Hurts at the helm, but he had 24 opportunities. He's obviously a $5 running back, being favored at home. He's, scoring touchdown as long as there's not a tush push. But 17-18, I don't know. I don't know if that's enough. So is this a ceiling game? I think there's other guys in better spots like Christian McCaffrey, pass catching upside. Obviously, he has not had a ton of rushing success. He hasn't flirted with the bonus yet, but 73 passing yards on 10 targets, 7 targets last week. Finally got in the end zone for the first time since 2023 with a receiving touchdown right before the half. But 23 fantasy points, 22. It's as steady as they come. His price jumped up 700, but you know what you are, what you get with him. The Cardinals played the lowly Saints and then the lowly Panthers right after that. So very easy schedule. I don't really know how legitimate that 13th is, but Christian McCaffrey, because of the way style in which he plays, is matchup proof. And I think it is pretty cool that Brian Robinson is a pretty capable handcuff or backup. And so they're actually letting him do some dirty work and touches. So with that said, if they have somebody to spell the workload to kind of help maintenance him, he could be just the true PPR back that we know and love throughout the rest of the season. But my guy, Bijan Robinson, Bijan is his name apparently. There was a whole stiff and stickler. I'm a big pronunciation guy, and it really killed me when it was like, oh no, it's actually Bijan. And I was just like, how am I going to not know that from Austin area, guy that went to Texas, top running back, historical prospect. And I'm not saying his name right for the first couple of years. And then he has the Sunday Night Football introduction and he says Bijan, they go the whole story saying that, no, I actually like that name more. So it's from this moment forward, his name is Bijan. And Bijan has been Bijan so far this year. He ended up overtaking Saquon to be the RB1 in terms of redraft leagues and best ball drafts. And he's looked the part so far. Had a very big dud in terms of rushing production week 1. But guess what? He got that 100-yard bonus with a early 50-yard touchdown reception. And then last week against a good Minnesota defense on the road, absolutely tore them apart with 168 yards on 27 opportunities. Did not score a touchdown, but still got 23 fantasy points. He's had the 100-yard bonus in rushing and receiving so far, the only one to do that so far this season. And with that said, he's almost matchup proof, but against the Carolina Panthers last year, absolutely tore them apart. 4 touchdowns in 2 games, was right short of the bonus against the Panthers the first time, but Tyler Algier and him had 100 all-purpose yards. And then the following matchup, he had 33 opportunities, ended up going for 175 yards, 2 scores, 34 fantasy points on DraftKings. Man, being under $8,000, I just think is very, very reasonable. I hope his ownership kind of stays condensed because there are a lot of guys above 7K that are in good spots. But at the same time, he might be my favorite of the bunch this week to have a truly breakout game, multi-touchdown game, really get the ground running for Atlanta, and then have their second win in a row going through him. Jonathan Taylor, we need to talk about him. He has been awesome so far this year. He was one of a lot of the fantasy community's least favorite second-round picks. We were clicking his name kind of naturally if we were going receiver first, kind of at the field, but a little bit overweight to him in best balls. But in a matchup against Miami, he literally did not leave the field until they were kicking their ass so much that they pulled in the starters. He did not score because Daniel Jones happened to rush for 2 touchdowns, but had all the snaps, 21 opportunities, even had pass catching upside, going for 3 targets, 27 yards. That's not really his game, but it made him get to close to 100 yards. And if it was a more competitive game, he actually would have taken down but then again in a tough matchup against Denver, one of the better defenses that we liked coming into the year, absolutely went off 215 yards, got a receiving touchdown in there, but 32 and a half, absolutely out of nowhere. Nobody was playing him. But then this week going against the Tennessee Titans, I think it's another one where I don't know if the matchup is insane elite, but he's getting all the workload. DJ Giddens, who is a very, very strong backup running back, one of our favorites of this rookie class, is getting next to no work unless the game does not matter. And JT is just going to be JT. So I don't expect I love the start that Daniel Jones has had. I don't expect him to continue eating into rushing touchdown workload like we thought Anthony Richardson would be capping his upside. So $7,200 still a little bit too cheap to me. And like I said, a lot of guys up top in good spots. Bucky Irving, I would anticipate he might be the most popular guy on the slate. He has not had the boom game so far. Atlanta kind of held in check. Everybody was held in check in week 1. It was a weird week, 14 and a half. But follow that up the following game against Houston in another okay matchup, but going for 121 yards, 23 opportunities, 50 receiving yards. Did not score a touchdown. Rachaad White actually was the one that scored the game winner with 6 seconds left. He came out of the game, so that killed fantasy owners for Bucky. But at the end of the day, $7,100 for a PPR back, a home touchdown favorite against the Jets, who have sucked in all kinds of ways this year so far. Like, that's just kind of going to be easy click for a lot of people. But going down, Chase Brown, don't really know what to do with him with his lack of pass catching work so far this year. But I'm assuming with Jake Browning, maybe that might increase. I don't know. It's been weird. Their line's been atrocious. I just hope that he can kind of become that PPR back that we thought he might coming into the season, because he's kind of been capped upside so far. 3 targets, but just 8 yards. He just hasn't had incredible production. Obviously, less than 3 yards to carry both games, but a lot of that has to do with the offensive line and the lack of holes for him. Boom game might be coming because he was as steady as they come at the end of the last season, but right now it's just kind of tough to get to. But a very interesting game environment nonetheless. But going down a couple names, I mean, Chuba Hubbard, nice and steady. We told you guys, he was just the most overlooked RB2 in best ball and redraft, whatever you want to call it. He was just sitting there in the 5th round, and nobody was excited about it. He's less than 4 yards a carry so far because they're just on the road. playing behind 3 scores both games. They were down 27-9 in the fourth quarter against the Cardinals, 26-10, or it was 26-3 actually, against the Jaguars. Both games catching and receiving touchdown in the fourth quarter. He is not known as a PPR back, but he's got 5 targets, 6 targets through 2 games. His price basically has not moved. He's 6,200 still. Now they're home. They're 0-2. Maybe they might salvage and sneak away with a win. Who knows? But either way, been playing playing very, very well in garbage time. So give him a competitive game and let's see what he does. Alvin Kamara, stay as they come, has not had touchdown or he had the rushing touchdown week 1 to salvage. Once again, everybody had a bad week 1, but almost hit that bonus last week. But 6 targets, that's what you're going to get every single week on the road. Very interesting matchup though. So I don't mind clicking on his name. Obviously, Seattle's bottom 3 against running backs so far through 2 weeks. Javonte Williams, man, he's back. We loved him coming out of college. We drafted a ton of him as a rookie. He was going off, tore his ACL and MCL, and then just had a long extended, wait to get back to form. Last year, he was truly healthy, and we took some shots on him around the 8th, 9th round. Just this is a bad running back room by default. Hopefully, he can run into touches. And then they just were saying Jaleel McLaughlin, was the guy getting, goal line opportunities. And I was just like, okay, is he done? Is he dead? Is he bad? He goes to Dallas once again. Dallas, another similar opportunity of just bunch of just plethora of running backs. Miles Sanders, you got Jaden Blue, who we didn't love that they drafted. They also drafted Phil Maffa, but Javonte was clearly the most talented of the bunch, but we just didn't know if he was washed or not. Guess what? He's not. He's been awesome through 2 weeks. 2 rushing touchdowns in the first half against the Philadelphia Eagles was very, very welcoming surprise, and he followed that up with an even better performance against the Giants in a shootout, going for 7 targets, 97 yards, 25 fantasy points. He's just been sensational. I mean, we drafted a ton of him in best ball, but weren't really confident. It was kind of similar to what we did last year with Rico Dowdle and Zeke. It was just like pick one. Honestly, we wish we would have picked. We could have just either exposed both, or we just kind of took the wrong stand. This year, we just kind of did something similar where we sprinkled both. But Javonte, we took a lot of early on when he was in the 140s, and Miles Sanders might be winning the job. Well, guess what? He's not. 77% of the snaps week 1, 72% of the snaps week 2. Javonte is here to stay. He's been playing lights out. And if he's going to have the upside of 20 opportunities every week, he could be the steal of the entire fantasy season as long as he stays healthy. So very, very fun matchup. Again, the highest total. We talked about Caleb and Dak. He is a stackable, a bring back option. He's all that. And his popularity might rise because of it, but just very interesting, worth noting. Guy I want to talk about, Kenneth Walker. Man, oh man. Kenneth Walker is such a good player, such a good running back. He was the number 1 PFF graded running back this past week. The thing is, it is no secret. He's dealt with injuries. He's missed a couple games a year, basically every single year of his career. He's in a contract year. Now he came into camp and then he's maintaining a foot injury. We don't know how serious it is, but there's just kind of secret. And then Zach Charbonnet is getting all the reps with the ones, and we're just like, oh, I don't know. And then the fantasy community wanted you to believe that Zach Charbonnet was good enough to eat into his workload. Well, early on, snaps-wise, if somebody has not participated in camp at all, missed all of preseason, you're going to be ramped up. You're not going to immediately get 20 carries out the gate. And, that's kind of reflected in the snap counts. Week 1, and that's kind of reflected in the snap counts. Week 1, 21 snaps, only 40%, whereas Charbonnet had 58. Both of them did not play well, but I guess Charbonnet got a little bit of an edge because of that. And everybody was like, I'm very concerned about Ken Walker. I'm not sure if he's him. Well, then the following week, Zach Charbonnet dipped down a little bit in terms of snap share, 55%. Ken Walker actually only had 35. So he actually took a dip, but played a couple more plays. And it was not close with how productive one another was. Zach Charbonnet on 15 carries had 10 yards. 15 carries on 10 yards. Kenneth Walker, 22 fantasy points, 100-yard bonus on just 13 carries, had a target catch for 13 yards. Last year, he actually had some PPR upside. He showed some flashes the past year. So he's only going to ramp up. He's the guy to go forward with. And last week, he was less than 0.5% owned. And I was playing 20 lines, and I ended up, if you follow our Discord and my exposures, I had one line with Kenneth Walker. It was just because I had 5,600 and I was running out of time. And I was like, I'm not going to play around with this. I want one Kenneth Walker. I was 50x the field to Kenneth Walker playing one time out of 20. He goes for 28 points or 22 points. Then his price only rises $100. So yes, his snap count is down right now. It's probably going to be 40 to 45%. And it's just going to gradually increase as his workload increases. He gets healthier. He shows flashes. But as long as he is healthy, he is the guy. He is the guy that you want from the Seattle offense. And right now, being at home against New Orleans is a pretty solid spot. I mean, they kind of held Arizona in check. I hate their offense, so I don't really know how much to put into that. But then this past week, obviously, we brought into Christian McCaffrey being one of the must plays. Brian Robinson Jr. kind of spelled him and did pretty well, I think, in his limited touches. So Kendall Walker, I don't really know about his workload if he's the 5-box running back with 20 touches opportunities yet, but I'm starting him again, and he's going to be in a lot of my lines. I'm very interested to see what his ownership does. And then in terms of value, Omarion Hampton, nobody's going to play him because of his 2 duds. But guess what JT just did to that defense? 215 all-purpose yards. I'm not saying he can do that yet. They need to give him the ball more. He has not had enough opportunities. I don't think he had 1 carry in the first quarter, and it was at the very end of the quarter. And one of them was for 5 yards, and it was an offsides penalty, so it was nullified. But in a game where you're playing from ahead, you can't only run the ball 8 times. You drafted him in the first round. It's been frustrating. Obviously, Kansas City was number 1 against running backs last year. Wash performance, but he actually played well, but the community wanted you to believe that he was awful or did not play well. No, he played really well, and he played a lot of important snaps. This past week was a very interesting dud. I don't really know what to do with it. There was a fumble at the very end of the game that may or may not have been his fault. I don't know. They credited it to Justin Herbert. But just worth mentioning, $5,600. Nobody's going to play him. But at home against Denver, who just gave up a big productive game to Jonathan Taylor, it's just worth mentioning. It's not going to be that hard to get overweight to him is all I'm saying. DeAndre Swift, a game environment, very interesting. Bill Krosky-Merritt, he now has the RB1 workload in Washington until they trade for somebody to take workload away from him. Very bad game, weird game, playing from behind, didn't really fit his suit, only had 17 yards after a very strong week 1 performance. But at the same time, not really much pass catching upside, only 1 target each game, did not catch it. But Austin Eckler being out for the year because of his Achilles injury, that opens up the waves. And until somebody comes in and takes it, $5,500 at home against the Raiders. And if Jaden Daniels is out, maybe that just kind of helps give him a little bit more opportunity. So it'll be very interesting to see what his ownership looks like. Jordan Mason, my guy, Jordan Mason. Very shout out to Nick, a very close friend of the show. He's a Vikings fan, and I bet you he's going to be playing a ton of Jordan Mason this week because Aaron Jones, like I mentioned previously, on IR now. And so Jordan, it's his show, and he has had a good amount of carries and opportunities in the first couple of weeks. Atlanta, obviously bad game. They couldn't move the ball at all. Couldn't get going. I don't even know if he's had a red zone or inside the 5-yard carry yet, if I remember correctly. I don't think he has, but looked really good against Chicago. Again, just not a lot of pass catching upside because Aaron Jones, that's his role. But now that Aaron Jones isn't there, I mean, you saw what Jordan Mason did when Christian McCaffrey went out last year. He was the chalk of the week every single week. So him being the home favorite with Carson Wentz now, not JJ McCarthy. I mean, the workload is there. The opportunity is there against Cincinnati, who's been bad against running backs so far. They had the most receptions allowed to running backs in week 1 with Dylan Sampson having 8 last week. Travis Etienne, very solid game. Didn't hit the 100-yard rushing bonus, but he did have a receiving touchdown. So, I mean, that is a little skewed because that's not really typically how he goes about his business. But 5,400 at home, he is a 5-box running back for 5,400. There's not much more I can say about that. A couple other notable names. Quinshon Judkins had a very strong debut with the Browns last week, but his snap count and snap share was not really there. Still, Jerome Ford getting the majority of the roles. So against Green Bay, one of the best defenses through 2 weeks. Kind of a tough spot, but he's only $5,000. So hopefully my, positive outlook is that he's going to have a dud game against a bad defense. He stays that price, and then following weeks with better matchups, that's when we'll start targeting him and buying low on him. But with that said, I think we should just kind of skip through. You're going to know what the pass catching options are. in this week. I mean, dominant guys up top. Jamar Chase has taken a big hit when he has not played with Joe Burrow historically. But guess who targeted him just nonstop when Joe Burrow went down? Like Jamar Chase had a 4 for 39 and a score when Joe Burrow was in, and then after that he finished with 37 fantasy points. He was our thumbnail. Oh, I'm sorry, 39 fantasy points, 14 on 16 opportunities for 165 and a score. Minnesota, pretty solid matchup as well. Very disappointing, but he is playing his college teammate for a narrative boost if he wants to try to motivate and try to outplay him. But all these guys are in play. I mean, Puka Nacua, I don't know if he's wide receiver 1 through 2 weeks, but he's been as steady as they come. 26 fantasy points, 28 fantasy points. He had a 45-yard rushing touchdown, and then he had a 10 for 130 against a really, really good secondary in week 1. So steady as they come. Philly, so far through 2 weeks, they were really not so great against Dallas, but Dallas, obviously, weird game script, the lightning delay. But CeeDee Lamb as a wide receiver 1 went off. 2, Kansas City's down their best 2 receivers. So it's not like Philly stopped them or shut them down. There's no one to throw to be honest. But with Minnesota, he's been, wrong guy yet. We'll talk about him in a second. But Puka, first 2 weeks, okay matchups, but been very efficient, catching 8 of 9 targets and then 10 of 11 targets. But he's going to get 10 opportunities a game. As long as he gets that 100-yard bonus and has that upside, like he's just going to be in play every single week until he's just too expensive. But Justin Jefferson, who I was going to mention following this, rough start because of the lack of quarterback play. JJ McCarthy having a rough start to the season, but now Carson Wentz. He's got nothing to lose. Like I said, Carson Wentz, last time he did play with starters, 27 fantasy points. So I think it could be an overlooked opportunity to where I don't think many people are going to really be playing Carson Wentz. I really don't think people have the confidence in him anymore. It's been a couple of years since he's been a full-time starter. But Justin Jefferson, he just needs somebody to throw to him 15 times. Can Carson Wentz be a Jameis Winston-esque player where it doesn't matter about the turnovers? He just peppers the guys with targets. This is the last game without Jordan Addison in the fold. So it's him, it's TJ Hawkinson. I think it's a very interesting thing because if people are going to be playing Minnesota, I think everybody's going to be playing Jordan Mason. But I don't think many people are going to be passing this or talking about this pass catching unit. I think of these guys above 7K, these big 5, I would play all of them. There's not one with a bad matchup, except for, I guess, Jamar Chase, but Minnesota has played Michael Penix. They played Michael Penix, Chicago from behind, so Chicago wasn't really throwing a ton in the second half. So, and on top of that, Chase is almost matchup proof. So with that said, I would have exposure to all 5, but with that being said, Justin Jefferson might be the lowest owned of the 5. And if that's the case, I might be one to get overweight to him. But anyhow, defenses, pick a cheap one, like we usually say. Tight ends, there's 2 dominant ones. There's a bunch of mid-tier guys and then cheap guys, and we'll be just trying to find last guys in. So I would say let's go ahead and start building some lineups. I am going to start. Let's start with a Cowboys build because of my Cowboys friends that love and be miserable with the team. I am a Cowboys fan, unfortunately, but at the same time, I just have no expectations. But either way, this is DFS. This is different. I don't care about a win or a loss. I care about going for 302 touchdowns to my receivers. So obviously, you're not playing Dak without CeeDee. Amon-Ra St. Brown going for 42 fantasy points last week, was in the optimal millionaire maker line with playing the Bears. I know that was a revenge game. They did drive up the score, but at the same time, Jalen Johnson now out for probably the year with a groin injury. So with that said, if Chicago is going to be letting those kind of upside opportunities, I just want a lot of pieces of him. I'm going to be double stacking George Pickens. He had a really strong game. He was very clutch in OT, receptions, 9 targets, 5 for 68 in the score. So with that said, I mean, really to me, it's Dak plus CeeDee. And then do you want the $6,100 Javonte? Do you want the $5,900 George? Let's do George with this one. I am going to bring it back, though, with our guy of the show. He's been a thumbnail many times. And again, tied for the lead in passing touchdowns so far. Rome Odunze, still too cheap. He might be a little bit more owned now, but it is what it is. Tight end wise, since we're now over here, I would like to get some exposure to those guys. I know Brock Bowers is on not only on a short week, he's been dealing with a knee injury, so I would expect to hamper his upside a little bit over the next couple of weeks. So if you're going to say price doesn't matter, probably most weeks I'm going to side with Trey McBride until we know that Brock Bowers is healthy again. But Tyler Warren, he's too freaking cheap. Like, first 2 games, he's had 10 opportunities, 8 opportunities, over 70 yards in both games. Like, he's been as good as advertised, if not more. Why is his price the same? $4,400. It actually went down 100 from the previous week. What are we doing? Don't know. Single stack it. I don't really care. But he's going in a lot of my lines this week because he's just naturally going to fit. Cheap defenses. I mean, there's some names to talk about. I'm probably going to cross off Cleveland, but wouldn't be surprised if they kept it close. Myles Garrett is just him, but even when he was him and they, were stopping Baltimore for the most part, they still, -1 fantasy points. That's not going to be enough, even if you're going cheap. But 3 sacks each game. They just haven't created a turnover yet. But wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of kept it close and it was a lower scoring game. But I'm not really going to go that route. The Jets have been terrible. I'm not doing that against Bake Show. Saints have actually been kind of scrappy, but it's a road game. I don't really know. I think the Raiders are an interesting one. If Jaden Daniels is out, they had 10 fantasy points on the road in a win against the Patriots with 4 sacks. Then last week on Monday against the Los Angeles Chargers, obviously not the best, but being for 2,300, you're going to give me 5 fantasy points. Like I said, cheap defenses work out more often than not. So they might be the best one down low. The Rams, another interesting one, 11 and 8 fantasy points respectively. I know they're on the road, but guess what? They were the only team in contention against the Philly Eagles in the playoffs last year. And with that said, I just think there's a multitude of ways that they can get there for cheap. So they're in the pool as well. The Patriots might be the best one just because they're going against Aaron Rodgers. They had the special teams touchdown to get them there. But basically, from a defensive perspective, 7 points each week to start the year. But they're at home against the Steelers, who really struggled, not playing the Jets in a follow-up game. So New England's defense is on par with what Seattle is capable of doing. So with that said, being 26 at home, I like the spot for them. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in on this specific build. Now I got about 6,000 to play with. I'm going to go ahead and try to click. I almost said Bijan. Bijan. He is Bijan from now on for this show. And then I think instead of going double stud, I do like a lot of guys up top. I might sprinkle some. But I don't think this is a week to go double expensive running back. I'd rather, because I told you about how much I like the 5 receivers. I didn't even talk about Nico Collins and how great he's been with 4 straight games, over 100 yards against Jacksonville. I think that this is a week to go either double cheap running back or one expensive, one value. There's a lot of value in the 5K range. Like I mentioned, Kenneth Walker. I'm going to say Jordan Mason in this one, though. Really good spot. It's a fun game environment. Then you got 4,600. Kind of an uncomfortable range a little bit, but I mean, let's see what we can do, make work. You got Keishawn Butte, 100-yard game week 1, and then week 2, only caught 1 pass, but he scored a touchdown. Cedric Tillman also caught a touchdown this week on a ricochet, so he's in the pool as well. But yeah, you can go in a lot of different directions. So yeah, I'll probably just go off of Bijan in this build and try to go 2 mid-tier running backs. So let's put in Kenneth Walker. Let's go with Jordan Mason, who, like I said, really good spot. I expect him to be pretty highly owned. That leaves you about $6,700, and that's enough for a Ashton Genty. If you believe this is his breakout game, Mike Evans, obviously coming off a bad matchup, but much better matchup against the Jets, who've been awful. JSN, back-to-back weeks over 100 yards, 65, but you don't really want 2 Seattle players in the same line uncorrelated. Emeka Ibuka, one of our favorite rookies coming out, 3 touchdowns through 2 weeks. I'd probably just kind of say, kind of mix and match, do whatever you want. Let's say Emeka Ibuka, the last guy in for now, but just really good spot. Let's do the other side of that game. So we're going to do a build with the Chicago double, Dallas bring back. And it's going to be tough to get in CD, but let's see if we can do it. I know there's ways to do it, though. So Caleb Williams, $5,600. Let's do the bring back with Rome. Obviously, I'm going to be saying his name a ton this week. And we're going to say DJ Moore. He's had back-to-back duds, and obviously Ben Johnson coming out saying that people need to compete and improve if they want to stay on the spot. I clicked the wrong guy. Take out Devontae and put in Mr. Rome, who's been one of our best spots. Obviously, he was one of our most exposed players in best ball, and he's been working out A-OK in that one. So let's do that. Let's bring back with CD, and let's see what we can do it. Kind of a similar spot because of the pricing. I might have to go with double cheap guys. Let's go TJ in this one again. Kind of similar prices and builds with what we're doing. Defense-wise, let's pretend that Marcus Mariota is playing, Jaden Daniels is out, and we'll be like Emory and be Raiders fans this week on Raider defense being $2,300, pretty cheap. Let's go Kenneth Walker. Let's go with Jordan Mason down low, and that leaves a bunch on the table. 7,800. We are 100 short of Mr. Bijan Robinson, but Puka Nacua, last guy in, is a fun one. JJ, obviously, you'd like to not have to Minnesota players. But with that said, Nico being a really fun name as well. I mean, 4 straight games with over 100 yards against Jacksonville. I mean, he's in a great spot. One of my favorite plays, as long as, CJ Stroud can throw him the football, because, we have a showdown slate where he scores on the first drive of the game and then has 2 catches, 13 yards. The rest of the game in a back and forth affair is unacceptable for somebody of his caliber. But last guy in, let's say Puka. Emery's guy, obviously, he was his prop of the week last week. He benefited in a big way. He's been very steady, 26, 27 each of the last 2 weeks. So, very fun line. I want to do one more before we get out of here, and we're going to get really naughty. And we're going to go and say welcome back to the field and to fantasy relevance, Mr. Carson Wentz. We're going all the way to the bottom, and I got to find him because he's that minimum price. There is our boy. And in this event, because Jordan Mason's role, he's not really a pass catcher. So if Carson Wentz is going to go off, it's probably not going to be with Jordan Mason also scoring 20. So with that said, because also Jordan Mason being the chalky option for the Minnesota route, let's go with Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. I mean, TJ not really targeted at all through 2 games, and his price, I don't remember seeing it all the way down at $3,800. So $3,800, you're less than Kyle Pitts. I would never have seen that coming in a million years this year. Well, let's say TJ's the bounce back, and then let's try to get fun and get in Justin Jefferson's college teammate, Jamar Chase, highest price guy of all the receivers. And then now we got to find some value. So let's go once again, punt cheap defense. Let's go all the way down. Boo, Marcus Mariota. He sucks. 6 fantasy points. Let's just take it and run. And then last guy's in. Obviously, I'm going to be taking a ton of the Chicago-Dallas game. 50-point total is nothing to be ignored. Throw Roman again. Who cares? Probably won't go as far as I did last week because the ownership would be I would anticipate being much higher because of the performance, but that's neither here nor there. Javonte Williams, fine as a bring back. I'm going to be mixing and matching him. Why did that go all the way to going to be mixing and matching with non-Dallas doubles of putting in Javonte and CD as the bring back to whatever Chicago guy I'm going with. 6,500 remainder. You could do whatever you want. You can go Kenneth Walker again. Let's say for a very interesting pivot, let's go Ramarian Hampton. He's right in the middle of a bunch of value in the 5K range, but back-to-back duds. And then let's say this week is the week against the team that allowed 215 all-purpose yards to Jonathan Taylor, that he can be the one to finally break out, finally score a touchdown, and be very, very low known in the process. And then Nico, last guy in, Nico Collins, sure. I don't mind that at all. I mean, you punted really at tight end by default, but I mean, it correlates. He's probably 1,000 too cheap based on his talent. Obviously, his performance averaging 3.5 a game is not going to get it done, but it's a buy low spot. Nobody's really talking about him. Double stack, bring back on top. Very fun. But yeah, a lot of ways to go on this slate. I think it's a really, really fun slate because of the lack of dominating quarterbacks. You can really go whatever you want. It'll be interesting to see what the ownership does, and we'll be doing updates throughout the Discord and on the Sunday live stream if we can get to it. So with that said, let's get into some final props of the week. Last week, both me and him hitting our prop. He went with Puka Nacua, like I mentioned earlier, going over. And I went with Drake May, who went over on his passing yard total. A little closer than I thought it would be, but he still got that over. This week, kind of similar, more of the same. Tyler Warren is Emery's prop of the week. 42 receiving yards. He has hit at least 70 each of the last 2 weeks, and 8 opportunities, 10 opportunities. Like, he's literally out the gate their most productive pass catcher, and it's not even close. So $4,400, I told you he's too cheap. He might be my most exposed tight end. So I am right lockstep with him on only 42 receiving yards, or he has to get to 43. Mine is going to be somebody who hasn't hit his prop yet this season, but it's been weird circumstances. Caleb Williams over 218 and a half passing yards. First game, basically got through it with his legs, was most of his production, and then they were playing from ahead a lot of the game, and pick six, back-to-back long possessions for Minnesota. He didn't really pass a ton at all until they finally lost a lead, and he didn't get the job done. Week 2, he easily would have hit this line had he not got pulled because they were down 52-21 in the fourth quarter. So in the highest total game where it is a true pick 'em, by far highest total game, 50, 25 implied points for both teams. So 218 yards is going to happen if Russell Wilson can get to over 400 yards in regulation. That is our props of the week. And that is our wrap up of the first look of the DK slate. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Like I said, please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the road to 300. We're trying to keep on growing this community. We appreciate you guys so much. It was a great week last week. We expect more of the same. Please check out our recap of this past week's college football slate and what's to come, because it should be an underrated and really fun week all of a sudden with a lot of fun matchups. Obviously, by the time this releases, we'll see how good or bad we did on our little bit of an unknown on the showdown for the Dolphins and Bills. So hopefully that works out in our favor. But we can't thank you enough. Get in the Discord for the final picks. Prize Picks, once again, they're running it back with a free square. I think it's Patrick Mahomes this week. So a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. Can't thank you guys enough for hanging out if you have gotten this far. And we will see you guys next time.